hear you. We can get started.
Okay.
Good evening, all. This is Nizar, the co-founder of SUG Chennai. I hope you are all doing well. It's a privilege to have Rob, who is one of the Sitecore MVP and well-known person in the Sitecore community. Today, he will take us through a webinar on a developer introduction to Content Hub. On behalf of SUG Chennai, welcoming you, Rob, and extending my warm welcome to all the participants. Over to you, Rob. We are very curious to hear from you.
Thank you. Then I will start. Thanks all for attending. Today I'm going to introduce Content Hub to you. I'm not sure if any one of you is already familiar with Content Hub. Then partly this talk is not going to be very interesting for you. I'm trying to not make it an advanced topic that I will not go into depth on development, but what I want to do is I want to show you the possibilities and explain a bit more about what Content Hub is and how you can use it. My name is Rob Habberijke. I'm Technology Director at IO. Formerly, we were known as We Are You, but our company is part of a merger and we're now an even bigger agency with all the same capabilities and more. I'm a technical consultant and architect, and I've been working with Sitecore for over 15 years. Initially, obviously, in the CMS product, but I think maybe roughly 2 years ago, I started working with Content Hub as well. And I dove in to developing with Content Hub right away. And I want to share my learnings and my take on what Content Hub is and how you can use it with you today. The agenda will be, first, we will go over the general concept and functionality of the DEM. I will show you what the typical configuration tasks are when you start implementing Content Hub. So this all is without any development. It's more the configuration of the SaaS product itself. Then I will go a little bit more in depth about what types of customizations you do have and how you can extend Content Hub as a developer to build custom features or to customize behavior. And lastly, I will talk about integrating it with Sitecore CMS, and that is using it as instead of or alongside the media library. So I'm not going to show you a lot of slides here. I'm just going to show you the concept and functionality while we're in the tool. So it's going to be somewhat of a live tour, a little bit of improvisation here. And if you have any questions or if you want to see more, then please ask this in the chat, and I will try to incorporate it in what I'm showing you. First thing is, what is Content Hub? I will show you some basic concepts, some key concepts. Obviously, assets. That's what a DAM is all about. The content structure, some things about search and how it works and how you can configure it, and how the default workflow for DAM works, and how you can use or what the sandbox portal is. Now, maybe the first thing I should tell you, Content Hub is more than only a DAM. It can also do CMP, content marketing platform. It can also do PIM, product information management, or what Sitecore likes to call PCM. In Content Hub, you will probably see the abbreviation PCM, which stands for Product Content Management. It can do print, and well, you can also use it to publish your text content with it. Today, I'm only going to focus on the DAM for the sake of time and to keep the scope a little bit more limited, and because I think that the DAM is well, the most close to extending Sitecore XP CMS with Content Hub as your first step. I'm going to switch over to my demo environment. So give me a second here. Over here. Let's do it like this. I hope you can see it. Can someone confirm that we see Content Hub web browser over the presentation?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, thanks. Because I'm going to be sure that I'm sharing my whole screen and not only one application. So this is Content Hub, and I'm running Sandbox here. So this is my, I created it myself. It's called the Playground, which is a name I made up, and I actually use it as a playground to test things out, to play with some features and some configuration in a rather harmless way, because it's a testing environment. Sitecore does have a sandbox environment, which you can visit at create.stylabs.io, and here you can create new environments. Oh, I need to reload. I logged out. 1 second, please. Yes, so I'll zoom in so it's a little bit more visible. Here you can create new environments, and this is very cool because you can select the right version if you want. So if a customer does have, like, for example, a 4.1.17, you can replicate the exact same version. You can also configure some options if you want to auto shut down it, which means that every day it automatically shuts down, so it saves you a little bit of cost, because as you can see on the right, you're billed only for using it, not the entire time. So if you use it like a few times a month, it's very cheap. And then you can also select the licensing, and here you can, which I've already mentioned, it has a PIM, a DAM, it has content, you can do print, and you can basically just configure your custom environment here and create it, and you can play around with it. It takes about roughly, well, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes, half an hour to spin up a completely new environment, and you can shut it down, you can create more and test some things out. So that's really cool for development purposes, and you can then export what you do to other Content Hub instances. So the basics of a DAM is obviously that you have assets. It's loading a bit slow because I was logged out probably. Yes, there it is. That you have images. Here you can see, and it's not much. This is just a test environment, so I've uploaded only 4, but you can have tens or hundred thousands of images in here. Well, you have different, let me click on one. You have a different data model for each Content Hub implementation that you want to do. So for example, this is a plane. I like planes. It's one of my hobbies. So I'm just using plane images for my playground. So maybe I want to have custom attributes, and that is all possible. The attributes that you see right here, I need to, you can select and you can create multiple types. You can create, like, for example, if it's a plane type, if it's a warbird, if it's a jet, that kind of stuff, you can all configure that. And I will show you that a little bit later on. Also, an asset does have multiple renditions, which you can see right here. And this is a little bit distracting maybe in my playground, because there's some custom panels in here that's not in the default installation, but I will show you them later on. You have the renditions, and in the renditions you have different images that are created upon uploading a new image. So if you upload a new image, you get obviously the original, but also in this case a PDF variant. You get a preview. The preview is used for displaying in the interface itself, and all kinds of thumbnails. This list of renditions can also be influenced by you when you configure Content Hub. And on top of that, on those renditions, you also have public links, and you can go to that via this. And a public link is actually a link that is published with specific parameters, so you can limit maybe the expiration, or you can create different croppings. I'm going to do that right now. So I want to have a custom crop, and I want to specifically have, like, I don't know, this for a banner. I think this is cool. I can even resize it if I think that is too big. I can do some resize, and I can also make a custom URL path. So I don't know, which is the name of the plane, and then a banner, I don't know, like this. If I hit save, Content Hub will generate this image and place it on its CDN. So from now on, I can use this URL in my website and directly display it. So I don't need to import it inside the CMS or anything like that. This URL is one I can use straight away. It's publicly available, and it's placed on the CDN, so it's cached. You can also do some transformations on it. Maybe I'll get to that later, but you can also resize it if you pre-configure multiple sizes too. So there's a lot of flexibility, but you have to actually publish the public link for image to become available in that way. So it also has some default features like image analysis, and you can create your own product details, for example, if you are storing products as well, not only assets. And obviously you have the default file properties and stuff that's all imported automatically. I've been playing around with this. There's different images here. You can see you can have multiple variants of an image. Mostly it will be similar images, but to make it more obvious, I've used completely different images. And you can set a master image. So that is the version that you want to use, but you can, so you can even use versioning on your images as well, or upload a new one if you like. So that's about the assets, and that's the core of what we have. But when you start adding a new image or a PDF or a video to your DEM, then you start out in Create, and I want to upload a file, and select a new file and upload it. Like, well, I have some images right here. I have an MP4. And you can also upload by dragging and dropping. That's totally not, well, you get it right away when you use it. But the thing is, you can, if you do that, these images will only be seen by you specifically. So if you have a content team of 10 people, for example, working on it, all of those 10 people have their own create view, and you can't, anyone else is not going to see the same image as you. If you approve it, then it gets to the review tab, which is rather empty right now. So let me just, I don't know, submit this video. And I see immediately I get a warning because I have field that is required, that I configured to be mandatory. So I'm going to set the publication date right now, which is I don't know, maybe next Sunday, and I'll save it. And you can see this is custom configuration by me. I've added this publication date to it as a as a required property. And why should you do that? Because if people upload new stuff, you want to be sure that it follows the requirements of your assets. So now I'm probably able to approve, submit it for approval. And now it gets to the review tab. In this case, because I'm an administrator, I can also see this. But what you typically see when your customer or or you as an organization would want to use this is that you have maybe photographers or a content team that pushes new content into Content Hub, and you have a separate or a limited size team that will do the approval and the review. And you can do multiple images at once as well, or videos. I can then approve it or I can reject it with a reason, of course. And when I do so, it disappears in the review tab and it gets to the asset tab. Now, the cool thing with Content Hub is that all the pages you see here are completely customizable. You have the filters on the left, you have the thumbnails, the size, what you see, the buttons over here, the buttons on the top right, because if I just select some images, I get buttons over on the top right. I can do an editing table, for example, and if I want to configure some stuff and I want to do multiple images at once, I have a mass edit table. Well, you see me here testing a lot of weird characters to test some scripts I've wrote myself and test the resilience of it. And you can do that, but you can so you can also completely influence which buttons you see and which user rights every user has or every type of user has. The filters are configurable, and also the page that you see in here. And to give you a little bit of a sneak preview of what I'm going to talk to later on, by default, the public links preview is located over here in the menu, and then you have public links, and then you get to see all those URLs. And it's a little bit difficult to judge which one you want to take. So you need to click on it and then look at it and then close it and then open another one. So one of my customers asked, can you make a thumbnail overview? So I've built my own component in here, which shows all the different public links that are available with the different croppings. And you can immediately see what the ratios of the picture are, what the cropping is, and if it's a picture that you want to use. Obviously, because I'm testing it way too much, but you'll probably get the point. So it's highly customizable. And I even built a focal point viewer because the customer also said, well, Content Hub has default smart cropping, which uses AI to crop an image, but I want to be able to override that. So I've built my own this panel, and when I click on edit, I can remove or add a focal point like this, and then I can put it in the location I want to focus on. And if I save, all my public links will be automatically regenerated using my own script that I injected in Content Hub. So as you can see, although it is a SaaS product and although it's not managed by you primarily, as in code and CI/CD and stuff, you can still do a lot of configuration and a lot of coding. But we'll get to that later on. So that's the basic concept. For as far as search goes, well, we don't have a lot of images here, but default the search works really, really well. You don't have to configure any of it. When I start looking for an image, I can just type its name. And even when you upload a PDF, you can search in the contents of that PDF via the default search. And you can use some custom search filters is you have facet filtering, where obviously not a lot of facets. Maybe we have time to configure one later on. And you can do advanced search, so you can also do partial search and search for specific fields. And also, when you have a search that you want to use multiple times, you can save it, and you can store it for later on, so you can go back to it. And you can even share your search queries and your collections with fellow content editors as well. So it's rather powerful in the area of search, and you can search both on facets, on filters, as on text. And within the data model of Content Hub, you can even decide which fields you want to include in this search and which not. And when you do include something, it becomes available immediately. So that's very cool. So that's for assets, workflow, the basic concept, and the portal, and search. So that's basically the basics of the dev. But when you set up a new environment, and well, this is my test environment with limited content and stuff, but I can show you some things. That's the positive thing about that. You also have some configuration tasks to implement Content Hub exactly how the customer wants it to have. So you can influence the theme, and that is how Content Hub looks. It's completely customizable. You can configure or customize your schema, your taxonomies, but you can even change all the pages that you see. And I also want to show you something about the media processing, which is the process when you upload a new asset to Content Hub. You can also influence how it's being processed and which renditions are being created. So when you are in Content Hub, you can go to the admin tab, and there you get to see all the tiles with the different configuration possibilities. Obviously, this is fluid, as in it really depends on which you activated, like the product, the print, the DAM, the content, CMP. Depends on that, and depends on your user rights, what you actually see. Now, first, let's go to themes, which is easy to understand concept, but very powerful. I can create a new theme, and I can alter the one that I already have. No, oh, that's the incorrect one. I want to show you this one. So what you can do is you can change the styling with the color and such. Well, in Sitecore, red is a cool color, so let me change it to red. Maybe. Oh. Okay, I'm experiencing a little bug over here. That's nice. I really set the right color. Okay, it's a demo, so something has to go wrong, isn't it? Yeah, okay, now it works. So I can set the main color, I can set the link color, like so. Maybe make that one, I don't know, to 20, 0 set. And immediately everything changes. The primary button, I want that to be like 5. It's very simple to configure it. But what you can also do, and you can also upload a logo. You can override or extend the CSS, and you can go much further than just these colors. But I just want to give you a brief overview. And what you can actually do is first of all customize it to the looks of what your customer has as a style. But also you can create like custom portals for different users, because when you have a specific user group, like maybe, I don't know, photographers, and you want them to have, if I go to users, yep, user group, I don't know, I'm just clicking one now just to show you. You have the, oh, that's the wrong one, sorry. Okay, I think I'm lost in the wrong. There it is. Yeah, it's user specific. What you can do for certain users is you can create different themes. So when a user of a user group or a specific user logs in, you can change the theme. And what that does is you can also create custom home pages, like this is the home page when I log in right now. But if you want to display a certain amount of assets, or if you only want to display a specific asset type, then you can also do that. So you can create completely customized, even with external components in it, like a chat window with your service desk or anything you want. You can do that, and you can change the menu items based on the user rights. So with that theming, you can create pages to, for example, a specific user group to only download content and not be able to upload it and be a user and have it themed differently than all of the other users. So it's more than a DAM. It's you can use it also to expose content to different user groups with different theming. Then the schema, which is over here. And let's go to asset. What you see, all the entities in here are also editable. So what I can do right now, for example, I can create a new group, like, well, I don't know, a plain information. And I also can make it conditional. So I can say this is of course, the name contains spaces. You have different labels, and you can even make it multilingual. So you can also make the user interface multilingual. And if you want to do that, you can set different labels for different languages. And I can create new members right now. So I can create properties that are just string properties. For example, I don't know, nickname of the plane, call it nickname. Some planes do have nicknames. And you can say, okay, is it a multilingual field? Should I include it in the content? Which actually means that if you do that, it's going to be a searchable field. So it gets included in the content you search. So you can create fields like this. Allow updates, which means, well, it's not static once you've created it. And you can also create some conditional types and tell if it's required or not. So with conditional, for example, you can say for all the asset types that are actual planes, the plane information is required. What you can do furthermore is you can create a cool taxonomy. Taxonomies are lists. Excuse me. Let's create a new taxonomy, and let's call it plane type. And if I allow manual sorting, I can sort the elements in it. I can say, for example, warbird, and you can see the identifier is automatically created, and I can also create multilingual labels again. You can also include icons and stuff, so you can make it very strong visually. You can add colors to it, and you can also use this. For example, if I would go to assets, and in this overview, I would be able to add a tag or a button showing the plane type with the icon and a color, so I can completely customize it. This civil, I'm just making up stuff right now just to be able to let's make that aerobatic. That's way cool. Safe. So do I cover everything that I have right here? Yeah, pretty much I do. So I have my taxonomy created, and now I go back to the asset details and I create a new member, and I don't pick the property but the taxonomy, and I can say, okay, plane type, plane type, and I'm going to associate this with the plane type. I can also determine my cardinality, one-to-many, one-to-one, and many-to-many. And many-to-many actually means that each asset can have more than one plane type. If I say one-to-many, it means one plane type is tied to many assets. And if I go one-to-one, I make it exclusive. So once an asset type and an asset picks a type, then it's locked to that. So you most of the time want to pick between many-to-many and one-to-many. Again, I have the conditional and requirement settings. I'm not going to use that right now. And you see, I failed to create a label, which is strange because maybe my language is like this. Okay. Yeah, it's the name displayed, not the label over here. It's okay. Okay, so I have this. I publish my new schema. I go to my page again, and well, you can see that it's not appearing anywhere because we also need to show this on a page. So I could have chosen to put the plane type in the overview, and then it would show up underneath this panel. But what I can also do, I can also go to the edit page of this, which is in here. And as I told you, all the pages are customizable. So if I pick asset detail like this, I can see what, oh, that's for video. We want to have that. Moment, please. Asset details, that's this one. I can maybe create a new panel, and or I can say, well, within the details, I want to edit this, and I want to say, well, please also include the plane information, like so. And I do want to have this. I can make it editable or not. You see, there's a whole. I'm not going over them because you would have like a whole training of a few days to understand all the options. And just going to show you the possibilities and the things you would regularly do. So I've now added this. So if I refresh this like so, I get the plane information. Well, it's not very beautiful, is it? So I want to maybe where it is. lost that, doesn't really matter. Okay, so there should be an option to show it as a panel, but for some reason or the other, I'm lost. Oh, there it is. White panel with shadow, or I can pick the theme color, which probably makes it red below the page. Yes, it does. Okay, so it can, well, not pretty. I'm no designer, but you get the point. So the nickname of this plane is Snafu, or actually the Jug, which is also one of its nicknames. And the plane type, I can select one. If I select, you can see it automatically allows me to only select one, which is the cardinality that we defined. And I'm going to save it right now. And now it is stored with the asset. So it is this simple to come up with a custom taxonomy data model schema. And I can also say that I want to have it in my list of filters. That's going to be a little bit more challenging, but let's see if I can fix that. This is the search component. And here I have the facets, and I can add a new facet, taxonomy type asset. Oh, it's going to be this one with the default label. Multi-select. Yeah, let's do that. Collapse by default, no. Save, save. And now going to refresh this page. And you can see I can now click this and it's automatically faceted. And this is so quick and so powerful because you can just, yeah, you can completely customize this interface to your likings and make selections and stuff. And so it may be a bit of a search when you start with it, because there's so many things to configure. But it's rather cool because you can change everything you want. So let me check if I explain everything. No, the media processing, I still want to show that to you. So I've shown you that you can change the schema, add taxonomies, make facet filtering, change pages and layout, and you can even, well, as you can see right here, you can create your own components. And for the asset detail page, to quickly show you that, you can over here see that this is a custom panel that I've created myself, the list of the public links preview. And you can actually just write some JavaScript, and you can use the data model that's in the in Content Hub itself. So you can just extend it and use that, and you can use your own HTML and stuff, and you can build your own components even. Last thing I wanted to show you, which is quite like a common configuration task, is the media processing. When you have content and you upload different media types, well, image is the one that you use most. You can determine what types of renditions are created when uploading the image. And you can configure those parameters. And this one, WebP, is one that I've added myself. I want to have a WebP image of a version of it, and you can customize also the intent expiration. You can do permissions, watermarking. You can determine if you want to resize it, use smart cropping and stuff. You can determine the content type, the color profile, or just skip it and let it be as it is. The pixel density, it's very powerful, and you can do all of that. But one thing you should take into consideration is that it doesn't work with backward compatibility, or how do you say that? It doesn't work backwards. So I have 5 assets right now. If I change my media processing and I want to have a new rendition or a new type of thumbnail, it's not going to be regenerated for you. You can do that. You can click on an image and say refresh renditions, and it'll do that for you. But it only allows you to select, like I thought, 2,000 to 2,500 images at once. So if you have a large set of assets, you can't really do that in an easy manner. You can build scripts for it, and I can help you with it if you want, because I've done it before. But you should have certain things you should have in place before your users start using it. So that's an important consideration. So that may look great, and it is SaaS, but how is it to work with as a developer? Well, I've shown you already some stuff that you can customize things, and I quickly want to go over the integration possibilities that you have. There are actually 2 types of integrations, internal and external. We also do have, and that's not an integration type, but I do want to include this. You can also use Content Hub to publish content to the outside world, like what has been called CAS by Sitecore, content as a service, like publishing GraphQL data of your content for content delivery purposes. It's been renamed right now, so it's not going to stick that name. But what I wanted to point out is that what I'm going to show you in the next few slides is not intended for content delivery. It's only to create workflows, integration processes, and specifically, there are 2 types of integration for that. The internal ones are for extending your UI and do some data exchange. And you can also hook into process events like you are used to with Sitecore CMS. The external integration are used to hook up third-party systems with your Content Hub implementation. You can do batch processing externally, like uploading new images, and you can do, for example, some data integrity checks. I've created a script that runs alongside Content Hub and is able to go over my assets and check if they are still all valid with the public links and so on. So that's an example of it. The internal integrations are very powerful because they give you the option to do some advanced customizations. And when you dive into that, and some of you may have done the Content Hub training, I don't know, there's a few concepts that Sitecore lists as integration types, which is actually scripts, actions, triggers, and external page components. Now, well, first of all, they're all related, but not all in the same field of use, area of use, and they have a certain relationship also. So to be able to understand it better, you can say that scripts, actions, and triggers are used for automation or automating processes in Content Hub. And the external page components are just to customize the UI, which I've shown you briefly. And this is how they are tied together for the automation part. I'm going to dive into custom page component label. Everything starts with a trigger, and you have multiple triggers, multiple ways of hooking on to a trigger in Content Hub, and each trigger fires up an action. That action then can call an action script, which is a little bit of code you've written yourself, or an API call going to the outside world from a Content Hub perspective. And the cool thing is the actions can also be fired by triggering manual actions, and the action scripts can also be called via an URL, making it also duplicate as an API call going into Content Hub. So this means that you can do API calls from Content Hub to the outside world, and also from the outside world call Content Hub scripts as an API. Well, this is very powerful. And then you need to understand the concept of the triggers in Content Hub. to be able to use this. You have first your trigger event, and an event consists of two concepts: the trigger objective and the execution type. I tried to make this slide to show all the possibilities in one overview. The trigger objective is actually the event that takes place, and it can either be a creation, a modification, or a deletion of any of the entities in Content Hub. So that can be an asset, but it also can be, for example, a user. So you can hook a process when a user gets deleted, that you kick off a certain process to validate that he doesn't have any open assets up for, I don't know, creation. So things don't get stuck in the system. I'm just making it up, but you can do that. Or you can say, for every asset creation or modification, I want to kick off a certain script that generates public links automatically, which is what I have done in my example. And then you have the execution type. And the execution type is when your action is being fired. That can be in the background, which is asynchronous, and that can be in process, which means that you hook into a specific point in time of the event taking place, which you can see is either pre-commit or on the audit of finalizing the data, or even post, which is basically almost the same as an asynchronous. But the benefit from the in background or asynchronous is that it doesn't lock your UI. So basically, in background is your default one. And then when you get that, when your trigger is configured with the event that takes place, then you need to configure some conditions. You need to configure which entity you're going to listen to. In this case, it's an asset. And you need to, or can, add multiple conditions on top of that. As a developer, you will probably figure this out rather soon. But you can also combine them as rules. And in the example here, I have said that, okay, the final lifecycle status of an asset should be archived or approved. In that case, I want to kick off my action. So first, the event takes place, and I say I want to trigger on the creation or the modification of an asset, and then I want to wait for a final lifecycle status to be in the specific area that I've configured, and then my action is going to be kicked off. An action can be just written in C# as a script. You're a little bit limited. Not all the libraries are allowed to be used. You can't do external API calls, because you should not use the script for that, but the built-in API call. And you can't do very specific system things. But other than that, you're quite free to extend code and inject it into Content Hub. And you also have different ways of executing this. As I said, you can call it from external going in, that's the web API type, or you can use it in different trigger points. And then you have different attributes. Not going into in detail about that, because time-wise, I can do that right now, but just so you know. And the advantages of this, that you can do almost anything you can also do via the UI. So you can create and update or delete entities. You can query them. You can change user settings and stuff. And well, it's very powerful. And because the UI is also built using the same REST API calls, you can use the UI itself by the developer tab to discover what's going on and discover the data model. You have the documentation, but obviously the documentation doesn't tell everything about your data model, your specific data model, because you can customize the taxonomy. You can customize the schema. So it's going to be different for each of the Content Hub implementations. So when you visit a certain asset, then you can change this part for API entities, and then you get a list. Then you get a JSON output, and then you can see what the actual data model is, and how things relate to each other. And you can also use the network tab to discover which objects in JSON are being sent. I'm having a demo image here that I've cropped, and I've configured the cropping. And the moment I hit save, I can see a request, and I can see what Content Hub sends to itself with the properties and stuff. So if you want to do some customizations like I've done with the cropping, then you can use this as a source to understand what's going on. But be careful, these things can change. And because you're, if you really want to dive in customizing the UI, then you should also, upon each update of Content Hub, check all this functionality yourself. Because if you go beyond just configuring Content Hub and start developing on it, be careful what to touch, because you're hooking into a system that is updated and managed by someone else, Sitecore, and not you. So be aware of that. That actually goes for Sitecore CMS as well, but we're quite used to that and we manage it ourselves. So if we update it, we know. If Content Hub is updated, you also will know. You will get a notification, but still be careful with that. And then you have the API actions. By the way, time-wise, I see I'm taking a bit longer than I intended to. Do we have like 10 to a maximum of 50 minutes to run late?
Yes, Rob.
Okay. Thank you. The API call is also created via the user interface of Content Hub, and you can just create your own API call to a third-party API. You can configure that right here. You have, well, I don't have to explain the obvious stuff like the URL and so, but you can also add custom values to it. And what you should know is that you can, with the curly brackets, you can add fields from your data model, even from your custom schema, into API calls going out. You need to make sure that the casing is correct, and you can see that in the REST API, as I've shown you a few slides back. And when you do so, you can use a API call to be triggered by such an event trigger that you configured. And you get some useful information in the default headers, like the ID of the asset that that's been triggered, and you have your custom field values. And on top of that, you also have your custom payload. So things like what has changed. And in this example on the right, you can see that in my customization on Content Hub with the focal point cropping, that each time I change the focal point in the user interface, which is JavaScript, I save it to the data model, to my custom schema, and that schema includes a focal point X and a focal point Y coordinate. And at the moment I save that, I can also listen with a trigger to that field being changed, and I can create an API call if I want. And you can see it right here, it's included in the payload. So the API is easy to configure via the user interface and exposes a lot of useful data from Content Hub that you can use elsewhere as well. The custom page components. Well, I've basically already shown it to you. I have the focal point viewer and a public links preview panel over here, and you can create those yourself via the pages section, and you do that via what's called external page component. And external because you can also introduce functionality from your own external libraries into Content Hub as well. So if you want to have a chat window with the service desk for people to ask questions about a certain asset, I don't know, just making this up, then you can also do that. You name it, you add it, then you can configure it. You can include some resources. In this case, I use handlebars because of the Content Hub examples also use handlebars. You can include your code, the code that also uses the same data model as the REST API, so you can traverse to the model exactly the same, and a template with your HTML and CSS. So that's basically it. I've already demoed it to you, so I'm not going to do that twice. But this is the way to maybe not very easily, but you can add your custom page component to Content Hub as well, and extend the interface to your likings. You can also change the components placed on a different page, and change how the layout appears to your own or customer's likings. So that were the internal integrations, being the events, the triggers, and the page components. But you also have what Content Hub calls external integrations. And the REST API, we've talked about it a lot already today, is one of those external integrations. It is actually a hypermedia API, so it uses hyperlinks to navigate between the resources, and you can real-time go through the model. It's accessible via /API, and you can authenticate via either a token or using OAuth. The other way of setting up an integration is what's called the Web SDK. And while the REST API is very useful to do some quick things, to check the data model and stuff, the Web Client SDK is actually the preferred way if you have access to C# or JavaScript, because it is in performance comparable to internal scripts. You have the exact same data model again, and you only have to connect once. So you're not doing a whole lot of API calls. If you, for example, would query the database and receive like 1,000 assets, and then check all those assets, and then check all the public links, which may be like 5 public links, then you're going to have 5,001 API calls, HTTP calls. So that's going to be a little bit slower. So if you can use the Web SDK, then you should do that. And it also is a little bit less code. Again, not going into default, just giving you an overview of the possibilities. But this is an example of something that does quite a lot. It goes over assets to check if the links, the public links are broken. It creates a query filter and retrieves assets, and then scrolls over them, finds public links, deletes them if they are invalid. And this is way less code than you can do via the REST API. Furthermore, you can also do things like uploading and approving stuff. So you can do a whole lot via the Web SDK. Obviously, the external integrations, calling the API, building the Web SDK, means that you have to run it outside of Content Hub, because Content Hub is a SaaS hosted platform. That's the differentiation between internal and external. The internal integrations are run on Content Hub infrastructure. So if you have a script and you save it within Content Hub, if you create a trigger, if you create a page component, it's saved within the Content Hub UI, and it's executed within and by Content Hub. If you use the external integrations, either being the REST API or the Web SDK, then it's called from externally, and you have to set up some hosting yourself. This, for example, was built using Azure Functions. It's obviously free and completely up to you how you will host this. And then there's one more thing I wanted to show you, and that is how you can connect the Content Hub to your Sitecore CMS. And for this, you need the Sitecore Connect for Content Hub DAM. Mind that there are 2 different ones. You also have one for the content marketing platform, CMP, but we're talking about them today. So we need this one, the Sitecore Connect for Content Hub DAM. There's a few requirements. You need to have Sitecore 9.3 or higher. The latest one also supports 9.2 actually, so you need to have a rather well updated Sitecore environment, and you need to have access to your Sitecore Content Hub. What's not supported is ASIC and also not the multilingual fields. And what I mean by multilingual fields are if you want to include Content Hub data into a field that is configured to be multilingual, then it's not going to, or it's not supported. I didn't test it out myself. This is just coming straight out of the documentation. Sitecore has a user guide for this, and you just download and install this module from dev.sitecore.net. And the installation process is actually quite straightforward. You install the module via the Sitecore client control panel, as you do with any Sitecore module installation. And then you need to add a connection string to the Content Hub URI in your app config, and you need to extend your content security policy, because within your experience platform, you're going to call out to the URL of Content Hub, and you need to make sure that this is allowed by your CSP. Then on the side of Content Hub, actually, by the way, the documentation mixes up these points completely, but I like to have a clear overview of what to do on the Sitecore CMS side and what on Content Hub. In Content Hub, you need to configure your course to allow for the incoming CMS URL, so basically two-way traffic, and you need to configure your authentication or redirection settings to allow passive mode. For now, just take this for granted. I'm not going to explain how the authentication works, but you can, by the way, very easily also configure single sign-on with Active Directory and stuff within Content Hub too. Nice to know. But for this, we need passive mode. And if you do that, you get to use Content Hub the exactly same way as you use your media library in Sitecore CMS right now. The benefits of this is that you can use a step-by-step migration. For instance, you can run the media library alongside Content Hub in a hybrid mode, and your users can pick from both sources. So if you don't want to switch over to Content Hub in a big bang, then this is really easy to facilitate. It also separates your content management from your asset management, which is in terms of separation of concern is a great concept. And all the URLs coming from Content Hub are actually CDN hosted. So you can directly use these public links that I've also demoed to you before, and you can use them in your web page. And lastly, you can also customize this search page like you can customize any other Content Hub page. But there's also some maybe disadvantages or things you have to be careful for, because if you include an image from Content Hub, it's been treated as an external link. All of you who've worked with Sitecore for a while do know that if you have an internal link in Sitecore, it's been managed, it's been checked, so you can not delete an item that's been used. And if you use an external link, you're on your own. So as with this as well, you don't have any integrity checks. I've seen some cool things built by people, and there's some options, but straight out of the box, it doesn't have that. And also it depends on the existence of the public link. I've shown you that I've created a public link called the Snafu banner, which I've made of the plane and stuff. If I use that in my CMS and afterwards I delete it or I rename that public link, this is going to give you a 404. So be aware of that. Maybe you can say, okay, people using Content Hub are not allowed to delete public links. Then you're a little bit more safe. But that's something to take into consideration. And the last thing is that you don't have an auto select when changing your selection. And to explain that, I'm going to move forward to a little demo. All familiar to you, the Sitecore CMS. and I've pre-recorded this. If you click, well, I click browse, and you see that the media library still works, but I also have a new button, the DAM. And what it does, it asks you to log in into Content Hub as a content editor, and then it shows you the search page. Well, a little bit different search page. And I can search for a certain keyword, for example, and I can browse my images, and I can select one that I want to use. And then it's going to show me the same public links as I've shown you before. And well, let's look for a 4:3 image, which I've included in the names, but you can see what the downside of this is, that you cannot change this specific pop-up. So it's a little bit harsh to do, or a little bit difficult to search for the right. There it is. Okay, so I'm going to select it, wait for a bit, and then it's get included. You can see it. So I can still use my media library. I can use the Sitecore DAM for this. The thing is, if I now would click on Browse Sitecore DAM, I would go back to the default search page and not highlighting my current selection of this mountain image. And if I want to change the public link, then I cannot do so, or I can't see which I've selected previously. So I'm just doing a new selection from scratch. And I think this is a little bit rough around the edges, but at least it works, and you can now use it. And as you can see it, this is just an external link included in your content management system in Sitecore. So what have we learned? Well, first of all, Sitecore DAM is highly configurable. It's a very flexible data model and taxonomy, and you can customize everything, also the interface, and you can also extend it with custom pages like portal pages or search pages for specific users, specific themes. That's what you can do. And although it is a SaaS product, you can still perform any action via code, and you can also customize anything via code as well. And you can use internal integrations for that to extend the functionality of Content Hub, or to do some automation, to have some custom UI. Or you can do an external integration, and then you can exchange data with third-party applications or build your own application alongside Content Hub and interact with its data. And the last one, and it's very important, on top of the documentation of Content Hub, the REST API is going to be an excellent guide for the actual data model that that you've created by customizing your schema and taxonomies. And if you want to check out more on my blog, I have written a few blog posts that explain my own customizations within Content Hub, and I've also fully open sourced this focal point cropping, so you can have a look through it and see what it takes to configure this. And it also goes over some topics that I didn't cover today, like transformations and a few more things. And also be sure to check out the Content Hub documentation, because it's rather good. And with that, I want to end my talk and thank you for attending and listening to me for well over an hour. Sorry for that. But there's just lots to show about Content Hub. And if you have any questions, please ask.
Thank you, Rob, for such a great presentation. It's very useful, and we have covered the basic in detail. So, yeah, due to the time constraint, the participants can reach Rob offline, okay? So that if anything you need help or direction, Rob can help you definitely. Rob is such a kind of person. So thank you, Rob, for your valuable time, and thank you all for the thank you participants for joining.
you for the opportunity and being a guest at your Sitecore user group. Thanks.
Thank you, Robert.